Today's lesson, more rational numbers, more fractions and decimals. Specifically, we'll be converting fractions to decimals. We're going to be using a few different methods depending on the type of fraction we start with. Let's get started. Alright, so starting out, converting fractions to decimals, I definitely think that you should have some basic fractions in which you have their decimals or corresponding decimals memorized. You must just have some of them memorized. So, starting with the first three, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. You definitely need to know. I always like to think relate these to money, quarters. 1/4, 1/4 is 0.25. 1/2, that's 50%, 0.5. And then 3/4, 3/4 is 75 cents, so 0.75. All right, let's look at the fives: 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, and 4/5. These ones, if you think about rewriting them as decimal 10 instead of 5, well, to get 10, you would double that 5, right? So, to double the 5, you just double the top. 2/10, 4/10, 6/10, and 8/10. You double the top. Well, now once it's written as a fraction with denominator 10, you can go straight to the decimal. Well, 2/10 is 0.2. This is 0.4, 0.6, and 0.8. So now that it looks a little nicer, the fives, you just double the numerator. 1 goes to 2, 2 goes to 4, 3 goes to 6, and 4 goes to 8. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, so the next set, my 1/3 and my 2/3, these are repeating decimals. Let's see, 1/3 is 0.3 repeating on and on forever, and 2/3 is 0.6 repeating, and you are about to see the connection of 1/3 and 2/3 to my nines. Alright, so my nines, 1/9 is 0.1 repeating, 2 nines, 0.2 repeating, 4 nines, 0.4 repeating, 5 nines, 0.5 repeating. Do you see the pattern? Numerator, repeating. The numerator is just repeating. So 0.7 repeating and 0.8 repeating. And now, just to show you that connection I was talking about, notice how there is no 3/9 and there's no 6/9. Well, 3/9 simplifies to 1/3, 1 repeating, 2 repeating, 3 repeating. And then let's see, 4/9, 5/9, 6/9 simplifies to 2/3, 4 repeating, 5 repeating, 6 repeating. So that's the relationship between 1/3 and 2/3 to my nines. So here's the big set of fractions in which you need to have those decimals memorized. Alright, so you can't memorize every fraction decimal equivalency. So we're going to learn two different methods of how you can convert fractions to decimals. I'm going to give you 3 examples and have you try 3 on your own using the method of creating equivalent fractions. Alright, so here are 3 examples, 3 fractions that we are going to turn into decimals by creating equivalent fractions. And what we're going to do, the thing that these 3 fractions have in common is their denominator are factors of 100. So if you have numbers that are factors of 100, numbers that go evenly into 100, we're going to convert these fractions into equivalent fractions with denominator 100, and then when you have that, it's very easy to write it as a decimal. All right, so let's practice. So 32 out of 50. If I want to change that denominator to 100, I would multiply by 2. But whatever you do to the denominator, you must do to the numerator. So if I double both of these numbers, I will have 64 out of 100. Now 64 hundredths, we can go straight to the decimal, is 0.64. So by creating the equivalent fraction, we can write the decimal. All right, let's try this next one. Because I have a mixed number, there's a 2 in front of my fraction. I know that my final answer will have a number in front of the decimal. But now let's convert just the fraction part to a decimal. All right, so how many times does 20 go into 100? Goes in 5 times. So if I multiply by 5, I'll have 2 and something over 100. If I multiply the denominator by 5, I must multiply the numerator by 5. 11 times 5 is 55. So 55 hundredths, 0.55, carry the 2 down. 2 and 55 hundredths. All right, next one all together, and I'm going to give you 3 I want you to try on your own. All right, so I have a mixed number again. That -3 is going to be in my final answer in front of my decimal. If I want to rewrite this fraction as something over 100, I have to multiply by, 25 goes into 100 4 times. If I multiply the denominator by 4, I must multiply the numerator by 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. 16 hundredths, 0.16, -3 and 16 hundredths. Converting fractions to decimals using equivalent fractions. All right, for these next 3 examples, I want you to pause the video, write them down, try them on your own, come back to the video, and check your answer. All right, you should have gotten 6 hundredths, 96 hundredths, and 45 hundredths. All right, our other method from turning fractions to decimals without a calculator, maybe our denominator is not a factor of 100. We're going to have to use everybody's favorite, long division. Our first example, we are going to convert the fraction 1/8 to a decimal using long division. So if I'm doing 1 divided by 8, you set up your long division symbol, and I'm doing 1 divided by 8. All right, it starts out seeming a little strange because I have to figure out, well, how many times does 8 go into 1? 0 times. All right, so what you do, 0, put in my decimal, and then I add a 0. All right, so pretend that decimal is not there, and we want to figure out, well, how many times does 8 go into 10? 8 goes into 10 once. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract 10 minus 8 is 2. All right, how many times does 8 go into 2? Doesn't go in. So I add a 0 here, bring that 0 down. How many times does 8 go into 20? It goes in twice, and 2 times 8 is 16. Subtract 20 minus 16 is 4. Does 8 go into 4? No. Add a 0. Bring it down. Should probably extend my line. So now, how many times does 8 go into 40? Well, it goes in 5 times exactly. 8 times 5, 40. Subtract. So you have to do this long division until you get that remainder of 0. And once you get the remainder of 0, you know you are done. So the fraction 1/8 is the decimal 0.125 using long division. All right, let's do two more. All right, now we're going to do the fraction 5 divided by 6. All right, so set up my long division. It's 5 divided by 6. All right, does 6 go into 5? Goes in 0 times. Add some decimals. Add a 0. All right, does 6 go into 50? 6 goes into 50 8 times. And 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract 50 minus 48 is 2. Well, 6 doesn't go into 2. Add a 0. Bring it down. So 6 goes into 20 3 times. All right, so 6 times 3 is 18, and 20 minus 18 is 2. 6 doesn't go into 2, so I add a 0, bring it down. 6 goes into 20 3 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract 2. Again? Oh my gosh. 0, 0. 6 goes into 20 3 times. 6 times 3 is 18. Okay, well this is annoying. It's just going to keep repeating. So what do you think that means? That means I have a repeating decimal. 5 divided by 6 is the decimal 0.83, and that 3 is repeating infinitely. So you can never finish this long division problem to get a remainder of 0 because of that repeating decimal. All right, I'm going to give you one last one that I want you to try on your own and then check your answers with me. All right, I want you to pause the video and I want you to try to convert the fraction 3/8 to a decimal using long division. All right, so check your answers. For this one, we actually got a terminating decimal because we got the remainder of 0. The fraction 3/8, its equivalent decimal, is 0.375. And there's your lesson on converting fractions to decimals. Good luck!